In a series once defined by the Florida flop, can the Gators flip the script against Miami? Also, a Big 12 showdown and competing philosophies from the offseason might well take early control of that conference race. And who is the dark horse in the Big Ten? Is it Illinois or is it Indiana? We might get some indications on Saturday. This is the College GameDay Podcast. Midweek, we are recording on September 17th, coming to you on ESPN2, as well as wherever you prefer to get your podcast. Rece Davis and Pete Thamel here. Pete, we're going to be in Miami for what in the preseason looked like a showdown between ranked teams. The Gators, the last two games, have fallen on hard times, to say the least, being upset by USF in the midst of a barrage of penalties, and then beaten by LSU in Baton Rouge after a barrage of interceptions. So I think the question becomes, this Miami team has a claim, and something I considered doing this week is ranking them number one in the country. They look really, really good. I haven't yet, but would quibble with anyone who did. Florida looks like top 15 talent, but they've played poorly. They've made massive mistakes. Billy Napier has said the things that coaches say when they're losing. The two worst words in the fan base's vocabulary or lexicon: we're close. We're close. Close means you're not there. What do you think about the chances? I mean, this is not when I last checked, it's like a touchdown spread in the game. So despite the Gators' problems, comrades in arid regions don't really expect a blowout. You think Florida, this feels like it's not a last stand for Florida, but if they lose a third game before September is out, it feels like a lost season, if nothing else, because I don't see them running the table the rest of the way or getting through with only one more loss.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a close game, Rece. I don't know if I have the gall to pick the Gators to just storm in and upset Miami, but in no world is this thing 45-7. First of all, Florida's defense is really good. Like, lost in all this, Florida's
great.
Florida's defense has played great, right? They played absolutely great. They kept them in that USF game. It wasn't like USF with that offense that Alex Golesh runs. It was like gashing them for big plays, and they were really good down in Baton Rouge. You hold LSU to 20 points, you should win a lot of those games, right? So first of all, I think, Carson Beck gets another big challenge. And remember, the Gators picked him off 3 times in the cocktail party last year. So I'm sure there's going to be some exotic looks at, like, this is one of those games where the Gators are dangerous because they can just let it rip, right? No inhibition, no like, oh, what's going to happen? Like, so I really think that Florida comes in loose, and this is a heck of a football game. Caleb Banks being out for Florida, who had just returned, right, and he's their star defensive lineman, the best player probably in the program, right? We would have said Lagway coming into the season maybe, but he certainly hasn't lived up to that moniker. So that's a big loss on the interior defensive line. I mean, you've done this a long time too, Rece. When you lose star interior defensive linemen, there may be body types to like put in there, but there are only so many humans that big who can move like that. So that's a big loss for the Gators. But I do not expect them to back down, if you will.
Did you are you familiar? You're familiar with the Florida flop reference?
I'm not actually. Yeah. I'll be honest with you.
Okay. This dates way back. I love to take the people in the Wayback Machine. 1971, the great John Reeves, who threw for billions of yards as the Gator quarterback, was trying to break Jim Plunkett's career passing yardage record. The Gators were blowing out Miami, and from the Canes had the ball on the Gator 8, and Florida, the defense just dropped to the turf. They called it the Florida flop. They just let Miami's quarterback go into the end zone so that the offense could get the ball back. And Reeves ended up hitting the College Football Hall of Famer Carlos Alvarez for like a 15-yard completion, and they got the record for Reeves. Frank Kersey, the Miami coach at the time, who later was a coach at Kentucky, wouldn't shake Doug Dickey's hand after the game. Ooh. And Florida's players went and jumped in a swimming pool. I think the game must have been at the Orange Bowl. They went and jumped in a swimming pool and celebrated in the back. They call it the Florida Flop.
Is there video of that?
I certainly hope so. I think there is. I think I've shown it before. If there is, it will probably make its way into the Saturday slate.
I hope so. You just don't see that on a football field. It's like they're like bowling pins. They just fell down.
Yeah, and they just went down, let them score. It was like it did remind me
pre-analytics.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It was before that. It reminded me of the story that former Gator defensive coordinator Bob Marshall told me one time, or Bob Pruitt, who coached at Marshall, told me one time when he was a defensive coordinator at Florida. They were playing Ole Miss, early Tuberville era at Ole Miss. Ole Miss wasn't very good, but they were scrappy and tough. And so they were controlling the ball against the Gators and keeping Spurrier's offense off the field, and ate up, like over half of the third quarter. And Pruitt told me that that Spurrier came up to him on the sideline and said, Bobby, either get the ball back or let him score. I've got ball plays here that are going to work. So, John Reeves had a ball play that needed to work. They needed a record. But, this would be, to go from flop to flip, this would be quite a flip of the script. The Gators have done it before. I think we made the joke on the pod a couple of weeks ago that if Napier comes back again, he's like Rasputin. He's like Wayne Fonts, the old Lions coach who got to the brink of, extinction with the Lions, and they'd win 2 or 3 big games, go to the playoff or whatever, and keep hanging around.
He's going to replace the Undertaker in that WWE gif.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been a frustrating thing for Florida, but for Miami, man, I went back and watched, on Saturday I had, a lot of screens going. I had the Miami game up. I went back and watched a great portion of that USF game again yesterday. Man, they look really sharp. They've got a lot of weapons. They're physical. That's a really, really good team. It's obvious by their ranking and by beating Notre Dame early, but they look legit. Their albatross historically is spitting one up that they shouldn't, and now that's a challenge because Florida is good enough, as you mentioned, to plenty talented enough to beat them. But this is one of those spots that if Miami wants to say the U is back and they're kicking tail and taking names, this is one they need to win. They're not. I agree with you. They're not going to win at 45-7, and some people may be disappointed by that. But they need to win the game because this could be a big turning point for Florida too.
Oh yeah, and I think the way Miami has been built under Mario Cristobal should make them more slump proof than they are, or less susceptible to upsets, because their strength, and again, they have wonderful skill and they have a great quarterback, really fun running back in Mark Fletcher, but their strength is the offensive and defensive lines. Ruben Bain is one of the 5 best players in the country. I don't think that's like a crazy, a crazy statement. I don't know if he ends up there in the draft, but from what I've seen for him so far, Rece, he is just electric. The Miami defensive lineman, and then on the other side of the ball, and I think I have this pronunciation because Marissa gave it to me, but right tackle Francis Maui Noah.
Boom! Well done, Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is going to be one of the top tackles picked in the upcoming NFL draft. He's a phenomenal player, and they got him as a recruit early NIL. And in Mario Cristobal, as much as they valued skill and valued quarterback, he has engineered a lot of their NIL capital towards big physical offensive and defensive linemen. When your head coach is an offensive line guy, you are going to have mauling units. And that's what they have on each side of the ball, which I think is really like the case for them long term. Now, what's Carson Beck now as a starter? He's 26-3 in his career. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah,
I think he came in the year 24-3. So maybe he's 27-3. Anyway, he's really good, right? He's really good. And I don't think Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator, has got enough credit for taking quarterbacks in short turns and making them instantly comfortable. There's been no easing in period. There's been nothing. Cam Ward came in January and he hit the ground running. Beck didn't play spring, remember, because he had obviously the arm injury that prevented him from going to the draft. So with no spring ball, Carson Beck has come in and seamlessly adapted to this offense. So I think a lot of credit goes to Shannon Dawson for his system, pitch and catch, easy throws, move the ball. Beck certainly deserves a lot of credit for digesting it, understanding it, and executing it. But a lot of times we've seen, look at Nico out west. Now, he's not dealing with the same weapons, but it's hard when you don't play spring ball and you show up on a campus and you have to go game one right out of the gate.
Yeah. To your point, Beck's leading the nation, completing 78% of his passes. He's fourth in the nation in QBR. And the one thing he showed Saturday, and he's always been a better athlete than given credit for, but he ran for a TD. They had some design QB runs, some zone read type stuff, and in there only 6 of them, just enough to keep you honest. And he threw for 340 yards to complement that. And then you mentioned Fletcher. And I think the other key as it pertains to Bain and the Miami defense, Lagway threw all of the interceptions against LSU, but he was pressured on 42% of his dropbacks. 40 on now by LSU. It was also a top flight defense, but so was Miami. The one thing that the Canes have done, they have allowed some explosive pass plays. If you look at the 20 and 40 yard categories, it's still, you have to be careful when you drop these stats like this because it's still early in the season, small sample size,
sure,
and that type of thing. But there have been a few. The question is, will Lagway have a chance to hit those? Is the Florida offense capable of hitting those? And, will they do so without, before the pressure gets to it? I think all of those are the big keys. To me, when Billy Napier turned them last year, it wasn't some big offensive switch flip that they had. When they turned last year, they just sort of doubled down on what you're talking about with Miami. They just ran it tougher and harder and then complemented it with the passing game. I'm really eager to see if Miami can just shut down Florida's running game, challenge Lagway to beat them, and then let the pressure get after him. Now, Florida can run the ball. That's where things get a little more interesting and maybe a little more optimistic from the Gators' point of view.
Yeah, when you went, did you go back and watch LSU Florida again, Rece?
Yes.
Okay. What did you think was Lagway's like? If you had to sum up his ills pithily, what did you think they were?
Can I use a Sabanism?
Yeah.
I felt like after a couple of mistakes, after the long touchdown got called back, I felt like he went a little rat trap. That was Saban's term for when you get out of it and you start, you get out of the system a little bit, you start forcing stuff, you want to make a play. And I've always, it's funny, people use the word panic with athletes and high-level quarterbacks, with high-level quarterback talent like DJ Lagway. I don't think for a second that he was worried about the pressure from a standpoint of, I'm going to get hit. He's worried about the pressure from a standpoint, if I get hit, I can't make a big play, and we need a big play. And so I felt like that was kind of it. It was kind of like, I've got to make something happen, I may not have time, that kind of thing. That's what I mean by that. That was prime. There were some inerrant throws. There were some forces, but it's really easy to sit back and, watch the video of a game and, you're not in the cauldron that he's in and trying to make a play and save his team, because the way that game wound up, he knows the score. I know each play has a life and history of its own and you're playing that 6 seconds, but he knows the score. He knows one play, they're right there, and so I think that's, I think it was mostly that couple mistakes, press a little bit, pressure's all over you, and then that speeds you up. And then you make mistakes.
Is it fixable?
I think so.
Okay.
Now, is it fixable
It was a long
this
pause.
week? It's because now we have 2 weeks of data. Now, it's not the same thing. It's not all interceptions the first time, but I'm not sure it is because we have 2 weeks, big spots, catastrophic mistakes. I mean, they've had 3 touchdowns called back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
first true road game, correct? For him?
Yeah, last week for him. Which was also something you don't think about because his name's been at the forefront so much. But we've seen a lot of that with quarterbacks going into road environments for the first time, even highly touted ones, and it's a little more difficult than their talent might have indicated.
So if you have 5 stars by your name, you're still human. You are still susceptible to crowd noise and pressure and the opposing team. You're susceptible to all that, even if you have a famous last name or 5 stars by your name.
Plenty of that. And there's at least one guy who had 5 stars by his last name that is going to go into a road environment on Saturday that is unlike any of the other quarterbacks have faced up to this point. We'll talk about it when we continue on the College GameDay Podcast. Back on the College GameDay Podcast, one of the fascinating theaters on Saturday will be in Norman, Oklahoma. Auburn going in to take on the Sooners. Sooners with John Mateer, who has vaulted to the top of the early September Heisman race. I think in some of those projections, he is now the favorite and deservedly so. He's so much fun to watch. And then here comes the Sooners' former starter, Jackson Arnold, leading the Tigers in. And Jackson Arnold played very well. Road start against Baylor. This is certainly a higher degree of difficulty. And it was just last year when Auburn and Oklahoma played that it was one game after Jackson Arnold had sort of had a bit of a meltdown, frankly, in terms of on-the-field performance in the Oklahoma-Tennessee game. Got benched, did not play against Auburn, a game that the Sooners defense basically won, a late pick 6 against Peyton Thorne, won the game for Oklahoma. And there are so many ties, Pete, between these two quarterbacks that are going to play, John Mateer and Jackson Arnold. They were from the same general area in Texas. Their teams played each other in high school, although I believe that when Mateer was starting, and his team was not a powerhouse. In fact, his teams did not win a lot, and he was not highly recruited at all. But Arnold, it was early in his career, and he was the backup to Eli Stowers, who was a star quarterback in high school and is now a star tight end for Vanderbilt. But, Mateer said that Arnold's team got the best of him, got after him pretty good. And Arnold, was the guy in recruiting in the district. Arnold's coach, even high school coach, even according to a story I read, I think it was, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I think it was in The Athletic, that it was Arnold's coach who was saying to these college coaches coming in, hey, you know what? My guy's the best guy in the district, but that Mateer guy over there, I think at Little Elm, you should be looking at him. Eventually, we know the story. He went to Washington State, now coming back to Oklahoma. We just finished talking about Lagway and hostile environments at LSU, and he's got another one coming up this week. I don't know that from a psychological standpoint that there could be an environment more hostile for Jackson Arnold than going back this early in his Auburn tenure and going into Oklahoma. The guy who replaced him has captivated the hearts and the imagination of the entire Boomer Sooner Nation. And here comes Jackson Arnold with the ultimate chance at redemption and spoiler alert and everything you can imagine with a team that I think is a little bit better than people think right now. I think Auburn, now I also went back and watched Auburn and South Carolina. There were moments where they looked really good, and then there were flat moments. And this Oklahoma defense is legit, be way more than anything Auburn has seen up to this point. But this is the stage and the backstories and the drama and the setup are fascinating for Auburn and Oklahoma. And, oh, by the way, pretty important game for both teams in the big picture.
Yeah, fascinating. Like, here we are with Jackson Arnold in his third college season on his second team, all the ballyhoo, all the hype. I don't know if he's good or not, Rece. Does that make sense? Like he could go on
Absolutely.
and be,
It's
be a
fair, too.
high-end SEC quarterback, or he could just kind of fizzle out and, kick around and end up at a directional school in the Sun Belt or something. Like, and that's, I think, one of the most captivating parts is that we've been teased, but I don't know if there's like a giant piece of empirical evidence where I could stake my belief in him yet.
I would agree with that. That's fair.
I think that, Brent Venables, obviously, big storyline this week. He was asked about it, and I thought this summed up Jackson Arnold and why there's still ambiguity over his trajectory. He said, can't play quarterback by yourself. And last year, and you can't, last year, Oklahoma was decimated by receiver injuries, and they just weren't that good. They couldn't get it together. This was obviously the jump into the SEC. They weren't ready on the offensive line. Jackson Arnold was running around and he struggled. There's no other way to say it. He really struggled. And you just wonder, this will be a fascinating test of his mettle, right? Because he could completely change the narrative around him if he comes in and slays the giant. He looked good against South Alabama last week, like you mentioned. Like he has been solid for Auburn this year. He was good that night in Waco, certainly, which was I think a really important game for him to sort of reset the weather vane of his career. But this is the one people are going to remember, right? Mm-hmm. And how he goes back and how he plays and how he handles it all is going to say a lot about how the Jackson Arnold story is written.
I haven't had a chance to talk with Mateer, but people who have. For normal human beings, one would think there might be a little bit on him too, but I don't get the sense that he's going to be too bothered by this. I mean, he seems to be a guy who embraces moments like this and opportunities like this too.
Can I tell a story about Mateer?
I wish you would. That's why we're here.
I hesitate to tell it because I don't want this to come off as like I'm patting myself on the back, but I thought it was a very telling moment of his personality and the moment he's coming into. So we're at SEC Media Days, and ESPN.com has like a room with a table, and they bring everybody in. You sit down, you talk to all the players, talk to all the coaches. So you get like a snapshot, right? And you get a lot of these guys come in and they're tailored suits and Prada shoes and big chains. It's been the same thing kind of year after year once we got to NIL. And Mateer comes in, and he's just got this like delightful naivete to him. Like there's just nothing else to say. So anyway, shakes all our hands, says hello. And he's kind of like this, like he's just kind of big eyed in a great way, right? Not saying he's overwhelmed. I think like he had this, like, this is pretty cool vibe, which is just different, in a healthy way, So anyway, I shake his hand and he looks at me, and I had followed him on Instagram that week as I was doing my prep for all the guys. And he said, "Oh, thanks for the follow." I just thought it was the funniest thing, Rece. I just thought it was the funniest thing. I was like, that is not what like your typical modern SEC quarterback Heisman candidate would say. So take from that story what you will. I wasn't like, oh, jump into your, like, it just was like, he just had this, like, he has a little like Gronk puppy dog in him. He's just like, oh, he's kind of like bopping around unaffected.
It's one of my favorite words to use for a quarterback that I love to watch play that has a bravado to him. He's a swashbuckler. I mean, he's yes. Like, he's like, yeah, we're out here on a pirate ship. We're capturing some treasure. That's what, here we go. A little sidearm throw. We're good. I really think that's going to be entertaining. The big challenge, for as much as there's a mental hurdle for Jackson Arnold and Auburn, there's also a physical hurdle too. Oklahoma's given up, the defense has given up one touchdown.
Yeah.
One. And it was that busted run early in the second half by Justice Haynes of Michigan. I think that was it. Yeah. I don't care who you play in this day and age of college football. Yeah. And they had a bunch of sacks against Auburn last year. I think they had 4 sacks last year. So, protecting Arnold, getting the running game going. Auburn's got a, running back that's gotten off to a good start. And Jeremiah Cobb, who's I think second in the SEC in rushing. So, You keep going back to these old axioms and cliches because they're true. Auburn can settle things down by running the ball, sort of like Florida, and that's their best shot, I think. And they'll run Arnold a lot, which is what's the secret sauce against Baylor.
Yeah. I'm going to shout out our colleague Cole Kublik, who does a great job breaking down film. This summer, he did his top 5 SEC defenses, and he had Oklahoma in the top 5, which was surprising on paper, right? Mm-hmm. And because they lost their biggest names. And I think he very succinctly said, look, they have a lot of their very good players back, and they may not be household names. And I thought that was one of kind of the better calls of the offseason, that he sat back and sort of looked at the actual players and not looked at the some of the results from last season and came up with that. And that's one of those things that stuck with me. They obviously have R. Mason Thomas, who's a high-end defensive end, and DeMonic Williams is a nose tackle who's bounced around a little bit, but he's like a solid older guy. And you know what? Like they plucked Marvin Jones out of the portal from Florida State and Georgia, who obviously we know who his dad is. He's kind of been a bit of an underachiever. They've taken some risks, but Peyton Bowen, remember, is what top safety recruit in the country. So there's talent on that side of the ball, and it's come together.
Hey, from what I understand, too, they're very, very happy with the way Jones has played.
Yeah.
Up to this point, which, if anybody
have you ever seen him? Have you ever seen Marvin Jones Jr.?
Yeah. Looks the part.
He did. That's why I said Florida State would have the best defensive line in college football last year. And I was wrong. Scouts told me that, actually. But yes, you look at the guy. He looks like he should be, walking through the green room.
And maybe he still will.
Yeah.
What is it we like to say on this podcast? There is no rule that says you can't improve.
Correct.
There's no axiom. There's nothing in the NCAA rule book that says that what you were last year is what you're going to be this year or next year. And Oklahoma's living proof of that on offense, for sure.
Yeah. And often when the clock starts ticking a little louder, the 60 minutes eligibility clock, and I better start playing well, or else I'm going to, I'm going to go down as an underachiever who doesn't have a professional future. Sometimes that, the discipline can get instilled a little bit there. When the clock ticks a little louder, guys tend to lock in.
One more ranked versus ranked game to talk about on this edition of the College Game Day Podcast. Move to the Big Ten, where the eyes will have it when you continue, and join us right after this. Back on the College Game Day Podcast, Rece Davis and Pete Thamel. We've spent some time on a couple of the games matching ranked opponents. One matching a ranked opponent, and another Miami and Florida, which the Gators are no longer ranked. But there's also one in the Big Ten, Illinois and Indiana, Pete, where Indiana last year, everyone knows the remarkable story, Cignetti taking the Hoosiers to the playoff, turning things around. Illinois had a really good year last year. They weren't far away from playoff consideration. These two are meeting as ranked opponents for the first time since 1950. Dick Butkus was still in. Dick Butkus was still in Pop Warner, if they even had Pop Warner back then. Pop Warner himself was barely finished coaching when it happened. But this is the highest the Illini has been ranked since Butkus was a senior at Illinois in 1964. In September. They finished a little better at times. This is a really fascinating game. How about this one, Pete? Better get this one out here. Ohio State is off. Memphis has a tough game with Arkansas. The reason I bring this up is because Illinois is tied with those two teams for the longest winning streak in the nation. So if the Hogs were to beat Memphis and Illinois wins this game, Bielema's team will be on the longest winning streak active in the nation.
Are they 10?
It'll just be 8.
8. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess Ohio State lost to Michigan. So
so
that is fascinating. Every person who walks in that stadium on Saturday, no matter what logo they're sporting, should scream from the rooftops, "These are the glory days. This is it. This is the glory days." Cignetti has delivered that, obviously, in Bloomington. Bielema has revived it there. We don't know quite, Indiana's medal, right? Just from because of opponent. This is a familiar conversation. Not all that different from last year. I do think Mendoza has shown us that he is capable of providing them a leap because he's so gifted. I'm all in on Mendoza, but you got to win today, right? I don't want to be so dramatic to say this is a playoff elimination game for these teams, but whoever wins this game is going to have a pretty good track at it. And I really feel like Indiana hasn't been tested yet, and I feel like Illinois going to Duke, and the final didn't indicate that they were tested, but they were tested, right? They were in all sorts of adverse situations. That was kind of a wacky game. They forced Duke into a bunch of mistakes, and went on the road through adversity and fought out an eventual comfortable victory. Indiana hasn't been that way, quite frankly, and we're going to learn a lot. Lee Beebe Jr., their second leading rusher, who's been really good this year, is out for the season, and that's going to be a loss for them. So we'll see what Sig has. I would think that environment there will be absolutely electric. You remember the end of game day when we were there for the Washington game last year. I would think that campus it has to be ready for a fever pitch at that moment. I'm excited to see it, and I think this is a good, close, low-scoring game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as for Indiana not being tested yet, they will be this week. Then they go to Iowa. And though while Iowa hasn't had the offensive transformation, I thought maybe they'd be able to yet. Never easy to play there. Then they have a bye week. Then they go to Oregon. And then later on, they go to Penn State. So the test will be coming. And Illinois, right after this, they've got USC at home next week. So we're gonna find out a lot about these teams. But for Illinois, to your point about being in great shape if they win this game, no Penn State, Oregon, Michigan. They get Ohio State at home. Pretty good situation for that schedule. Hey, Pete, before we finish up on the ESPN2 version of this podcast, Big 12, Texas Tech, Utah. Winner of this game might be deemed the favorite. And the one thing that has struck me about this, a couple of trends from the offseason are clashing. One, the obvious one, Texas Tech spends a bunch of money in the portal, and you're going to see we were doing some planning. You're going to see a really good breakdown on 3 of those transfers on the defensive front for Texas Tech and the impact that they could have and potentially will have in the future, bringing in players, spending money in the portal. The other trend that Utah, you're also going to see in Saban's film room, why this is working for Utah, quarterback, offensive coordinator come together, and the whole system comes with them. With Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator, and Devin Dampier, the quarterback at Utah. This is going to be a really fun game. And while the Big 12 is balanced, and you got Arizona State and Baylor on Saturday too, so I'm by no means saying the winner wins the conference. Iowa State's still out there undefeated, but statement coming out of that game for sure that winner of that game is going to have to be reckoned with and maybe even be the favorite in the Big 12.
Yeah, Utah has gone to the Rose Bowl and beaten UCLA. Now, we know what UCLA has become, but that was a challenge, so I give them credit for that. Neither team's really been punched in the mouth yet, Rece. And I think the response to that is going to be the key here. When Barron Moore in the Texas Tech quarterback has been healthy, he's been an elite Big 12 quarterback. His issue has been he's just had a hard time staying on the field. So how he handles that environment, what is it, 10 a.m. kick local?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, 10 a.m. kick local, which Texas Tech people are excited about, by the way, I've been told. Because, again, it's not like Utah might have the rowdiest tailgate crowd, but it's just hard to be loud at 10 in the morning, right? So that will be interesting to see. Now, you've done games at Utah, I assume, right, Rece?
I have.
Back in your Thursday game. It's a great environment, right?
It's awesome.
The setting is beautiful. The fan base is great there. It is very good. It would obviously be a lot more electric if it was a night game or like a little bit later in the day. So it's 2 grand experiments clashing, right? It is the coach coordinator experiment that you mentioned, and it is the overt buy the best team experiment with Cody Campbell clashing. So a really interesting moment for Joey McGuire here, somewhat early in his head coaching career. They could go in and if they steal this game, they could really be on a completely different plane and trajectory they haven't been on since Mike Leach and Michael Crabtree.
You know who's played the easiest schedule in the country so far? I mean, number 136, the lowest ranked strength of schedule up to this point. Texas Tech. Yeah. Now, Utah's not far ahead of it. Yeah. I mean, Utah's like 119 or something.
Yeah.
But
that's what I mean. We just don't know. And there has not been enough adversity we know. Devin Pierre is wonderful. He's electric. We haven't seen him yet in this uniform, on a big 3rd and 6 down by 3 in the third, like those are the moments that ultimately define teams. We haven't seen him yet. I do just love this Utah offensive line though. I just, for as much firepower as Texas Tech has brought in defensively, I just think like they have to, this game is big people moving big people, and I like Utah's big people.
Yeah, it's so I think you're going to see Dampier run even more in this game. He has just a little under 200 yards rushing on the season, just one rushing touchdown, largely by design. If you start looking at how they throw the ball, when they haven't been effective throwing the ball down the field, it's easy to argue they haven't needed to be because of who they've played up to this point. So there are a lot of unknowns between these two, and I agree with you on how this is going to go. A lot of clashes up front, and who knows? I mean, you say make a statement. This might be the first of 2 meetings between these two. But I'm not counting out the Sun Devils yet, nor am I counting out Baylor.
What about TCU? We haven't mentioned TCU.
Nor TCU. There are so many teams in the Big 12 that could wind up in that championship game that, just because we didn't say them right here doesn't mean you're counting them out. That TCU is really good. They play for the skillet, play for the Iron Skillet. Another rival.
That game will be a blast. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be great. It's going to be a fun Saturday. Maybe you always look for those themes. Maybe it's finally we get tested Saturday. And
there we go.
In some quarters for those.
The teams will reveal themselves.
Yeah. What will they be? Going on in the College GameDay Podcast, Rece Davis and Pete Thamel. Pete, at this point in the podcast on Wednesdays when we record, we typically pick a 6-pack of games. But there's a more pressing matter that we need to get to first. That, I'm spoiling the surprise a little bit for our loyal listeners who also will be watching. And we need to keep this tight in the meeting on Friday. We don't need anyone else on the set to know about this except you and me. If you followed along with the saga between, and you mentioned Cole Kubelik earlier, he was in the middle of this on the sidelines, of Diego Pavia and Theo Vaughn, and a wager that they had, if you want to call it that if Vanderbilt beat South Carolina, Theo Vaughn would go on a date with Diego Pavia's mom. And then also Pavia then comes back and says, wait a minute, that wasn't the whole arrangement. It was also part of the arrangement that you, Theo Vaughn, could get me a date with the musician Tate McRae. So,
had you ever heard of Tate McRae?
On a cursory level, I guess. I would. The name was familiar. I'm not going to pretend that I'm totally familiar with her work, but I got this from my son last night. A little Instagram thing of as the kids say, Theo Vaughn sliding into Tate McRae's DMs, and he says, "Hey Tate, my friend said I can take his mom on a date, but only if he is able to take you on a date." Then the next message, here is a pic of him. Now, Diego Pavia is a handsome lad. I would say that Theo didn't pick the most flattering screen grab of him right there. And then he followed it up, Theo Vaughn did, to Tate McRae. If you don't want to go on a date with him, I can also take you on a date. So this is where Pete Thamel's investigative skills come into play. First of all, I need to know if Diego Pavia's mom is interested in going on a date with Theo Vaughn. I need to know that. I need to know if there are any other romantic ties involved in this also. And I gave you a head start a little bit on some of the romantic ties, I think.
Yes. So let's start here. Can you imagine Tate McRae has 7.9 million Instagram followers? That essentially like the city of New York follows her on Instagram, every human in it. Can you imagine what shows up in her DMs? I mean, just can you imagine? Like, I can't even begin to imagine what that is. So I always credit the kids for shooting their shot, right? And
Yep.
and look, I mean, Diego Pavia went from the Albuquerque Tinkler to the darling of the SEC. He took Vanderbilt from a program that basically wallowed for generations, other than like a mini blip under James Franklin, into like a functional borderline college football playoff contender. I am never going to doubt Diego Pavia in his quests, because Diego Pavia, what did they win at Auburn and Liberty when he was at New Mexico State? Were those the two? He beat Freeze
He hammered them.
Yes.
Both times. Hammered them. Yeah.
Yes. So I will not bet against Diego Pavia on 3rd and 4, and I will not bet against him in life. So we will give a full update of his latest quest, or his friend's quest, on Saturday. But Dan Wetzel would be proud of us, Rece. We're talking about Diego Pavia's love life instead of like breaking down zone coverage first man. So
hey,
the people must know.
Before we make picks, we mentioned the term swashbuckler early in the podcast. Diego Pavia, swashbuckler.
Yeah, they may need a term. He's like above a swashbuckler almost.
Who else? That's going to be who else right now? Let's think. Who else would be a swashbuckler?
So a current swashbuckler. So let's start
current
here.
Swashbuckler.
Who's an all-time swashbuckler? If you needed
Johnny Manziel.
Yes, he's the all-time.
Johnny Manziel's the all-time swashbuckler quarterback, right?
Yes.
And if you want to go real old school, I would even say Archie Manning. Running around all over the place, playing in the Gator Bowl with a cast on his arm,
Yeah.
And he's a swashbuckler for sure.
Yes. So I feel like to be a swashbuckler, you have to run, right? Like there aren't a lot of like Drew Bledsoe archetype swashbucklers.
No. I mean, there can be Tom Brady, great quarterback, not a swashbuckler.
Yes.
Guys, and not just running quarterbacks, guys who move and create plays. Like, for instance, I think the greatest college quarterback season I've ever seen all time, and I'll put it up, is Cam Newton, 2010.
Yeah, hard to argue.
Cam Newton, not really swashbuckler. No. Jalen Hurts, great runner even now, not a swashbuckler. You know who? Baker Mayfield's a swashbuckler.
There you go.
Baker Mayfield's one.
There you go.
For sure. So Manziel, Mayfield.
A little bit in him is Nuss. Nuss has got a little swashbuckle in him. He
Because
probably isn't athletic.
He'll turn it loose.
He'll take some risks and he'll like try to fit it in the tightest windows. The swashbucklers believe they can throw a ball through a mail slot. Like that is
who else? Another patron saint, John Elway.
Yeah.
Because John Elway, especially early in his career, would run around and run to one sideline and go, "Oh, there's someone open on the opposite hash 45 yards down the field. I can get that in there." And he did most of the time. So Elway swashbuckler for sure.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of times, would you give Lamar as a swashbuckler when he was in college? Yeah. Like Lamar kind of had I think improvisational has to be a 10 for you to fit on the swashbuckler list. And Lamar certainly had some, had some swashbuckling to him. Taylon Green, if we're talking about guys.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
He's going to be productive.
He's a dude, man.
Yeah, Arkansas is going to have some skins on the wall this year because of that guy. He can single-handedly win you an SEC football game. Like he's got that kind of juice. The Big Ten, not a conference of swashbucklers, right? You think about all the Ohio State dudes. I wouldn't call any of those guys swashbucklers.
No.
Like, who had a little bit of it is Trace McSorley.
Yep.
He had a
little touch of it.
Yeah, he had a little bit of it.
Underwood might eventually be that, maybe.
Yeah. I'm. We're going to talk about it here, but I'm excited to see him in that stage this weekend. It's Well, we'll talk about that game when we talk about that game. So that's a good topic. Add us on social media, Rece and I. If we are certainly missing some swashbucklers. We did sit around last night and put together. This is all improv, much like the swashbucklers themselves. So I am sure there is a guy or two who we're not thinking about here.
That I would love to see that. Send us your list of
Yeah.
swashbucklers, current and all time,
Yes.
but particularly the current guys right now that would fit into this category. Great improvisational skills, not just runners. Like option quarterbacks, they're not disqualified, but they wouldn't necessarily fit the category just because they can run a little bit. For the old heads out there like me, Fran Tarkenton. Yeah, he was a swashbuckler, probably even at Georgia, but certainly in the pros. Are you ready to go through pop the top on a 6-pack of picks here?
Let's go.
Let's start with a game we talked about just recently, the clash of off-season styles in the Big 12. One of the 3 ranked versus ranked matchups this weekend. Texas Tech, 10 a.m. on the road against Utah. What do you think?
I can't go against this Utah combination of the running quarterback and the offensive line. You got Caleb Lomu at left tackle, you got Spencer Fano at right tackle, and you've got 3 dudes in the interior of that offensive line who are all redshirt seniors. If Texas Tech can find a way to penetrate that on defense and win this game, all props and hats off to them. But I'm going to go with the physics in this matchup, and I'm going to take Utah like 20-13.
I'm also going to take Utah to win the game, although I do think that Utah front will have its hands full with the likes of David Bailey and Romello Height and Lee Hunter, who is a big, strong guy in the middle who can give them a challenge. Both of these quarterbacks completing better than 70%. When you mentioned it earlier, when Baron Morton has remained healthy, he's been wildly productive. Utah defense, while not challenged by a extremely difficult schedule, they've allowed 25 points in 3 games, and we've already hit Texas Tech over the head for playing the easiest schedule in the country so far, but it'll get much tougher as they go along in conference play. But I'll take Utah as well. I've been high on Texas Tech since the offseason and remain so, but I think playing there, you're right, maybe the morning start gives them a little bit of an advantage if the mighty Utah student section isn't quite as revved up as normal. But I think Utah is too strong, too good. I'll go with the Utes to win it. Auburn at Oklahoma, mid-afternoon game on ABC. John Mateer against Jackson Arnold. I think I know which way you're leaning there. Oklahoma's given up 1 touchdown all season so far. What do you think?
How can we have like a total segment dedicated to swashbucklers and then I pick against the swashbuckler? It just doesn't seem to make sense. So I think this is a close game, but I think the Sooners improv and figure out a way to win these. So I'm going to go, this is like a 28-24 kind of game. Sooners roll.
This is like one of those gut feeling games.
And your wife went to Auburn. She doesn't like it when you don't pick them.
She did. She's okay with that. She just doesn't like it when I go against some super dogs. That's what she doesn't like because
you picked South Al last week.
Yeah, she doesn't like that because I think then that I don't know. It means they're going to face plant basically when you do it, when you go against them with it. I'm really, really tempted to take Auburn in this game.
Well, do it, Rece.
Well, I just...
Who does Christopher like? Have you asked him?
I think I just can't. I think he'll probably obviously he's rooting for Auburn, but I don't know. I can't do it, Pete, because of Mateer, a little more proven. You made a great point earlier in the pod. We want these guys to be successful and achieve their goals, but we don't know for sure if Jackson Arnold is a high-level quarterback that can win against a defense like this on the road and a stage like this. That has yet to be proven. Auburn has some good pieces on defense, but they are susceptible to some big plays, and Mateer's a guy who can make them. So, unfortunately, we're going to remain in lockstep here. I am going to take Oklahoma in that game as well. But I think it's going to be highly entertaining. I think Auburn's going to have a chance to win the game. So not sure exactly what the number is, but you might want to think about the Tigers and the points. I think it's around the touchdown, isn't it? If it's not, we'll We'll correct that momentarily. Michigan and Nebraska, also mid-afternoon. This is a really big game for the Cornhuskers. They got a little bit of that close game jinx off their back last year. Biff Poggi in his second game as acting head coach, and Biff is going to join us on College Game Day Saturday morning.
Hopefully with no sleeves. Like, I know he has to wear sleeves in the game, but hopefully he joins us with no sleeves.
I hope so. I hope so too. Nebraska's 1995 national championship team is going to be honored. It's going to be a big thing. You know, Nebraska hasn't beaten a ranked opponent since 2016. They've lost 27 in a row.
That's wild.
What happens? What happens, Pete?
So, very quietly, Dylan Raiola has emerged to be a really good college quarterback, right? If you go through, he's got 8 touchdowns, he's got no interceptions. His completion percentage, Rece, is 76.6%. They've got the close game monkey off their back. I think this is an electric night. They've done a good job upgrading the skill around him with Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter. I think Nebraska channels the emotion of the day there, and I think that place will be absolutely electric. And as much as I think of Bryce Underwood, and he is fantastic, I think that's a very tough environment to go into. So I'm going to take Nebraska in the upset, 23-17.
Give me the breakthrough for the Huskers as well. I mean, if not now, when? I think they're ready to do it. Longtime listeners of the College Game Day podcast know that every time an opening came about on the coaching front, I said, you should hire Matt Rule. Nebraska's the one that did it. I think they're building a program that will sustain. So give me Nebraska. I hate it that we're 3 for 3 on the same side, which probably bodes well for the others. But I think the other thing that we've done up to this point is we've gone home, home, home. So far, can anybody get a massive road win? Game where College Game Day will be Florida and Miami. If it's not the last stand for the Gators, and I'm not willing to call it that yet, it is certainly a significant stand that they need to make after the last 2 weeks and the various forms of self-inflicted wounds. Florida, any chance you're calling for the upset here? I sense that you want to do this.
I'm taking it.
Are you?
Taking the upset. There's no more effective coach in the country than Billy Napier with a knife at his throat. And the knife is now directly on his jugular, and it's like scratching right now. And DJ Lagway, I think, will learn and grow from this. I still have a lot of belief in DJ Lagway. And I think Notre Dame's defense, we've come to learn, which Miami filleted in the opener, is just maybe not what we thought personnel-wise. I think personnel-wise, Florida might be as good, if not better. But I think just that free/desperation is going to make this a close game. We know what happens sometimes when Miami plays close games, Rece. So I'm going to call the upset. Let's say 28-27, and I think we get a classic.
That would set off a Richter scale type reverberation across the SEC and the ACC if that comes to be. I think Florida will play well. I haven't seen enough from Florida's offense to think that it will be able to keep up. As long as Miami avoids, any type of its own self-inflicted problems, I think the Hurricanes win. They don't blow them out. It's not an easy victory because I don't think anything's going to come easily against the Gators. But I'm going to take Miami to win the game. I think it's one of those things. I had questions about Carson Beck in the offseason just from I don't know. Just, the way things went at Georgia, it just always seemed to be ill-fitting. Very small sample size. You don't want to overreact to games against Notre Dame was not overmatched, but early season games. But this looks to be just right for Carson Beck, stylistically, lifestyle, culture around the team, whole thing. Everything seems to fit him very well. Now, maybe that might be as simple as him being a little older, being knocked down a peg from the injury and departing Georgia, not ending last year the way he thought. All of those, it might have nothing to do with Georgia and everything to do with Carson Beck's personal growth. He looks good. He looks like he fits right there, and I'm going to say Miami wins the game. I'll take Miami.
I'm glad you just got me into Tate McRae's love life, and you didn't send me to find Carson Beck's Lamborghini. That would have been.
Did they locate that?
I don't know.
I thought they did. Now, is he still? While we're on the subject of love life, they broke up, right?
I believe so. I believe it was a little bit contentious. I believe it was a little bit contentious. There was some TikTok vitriol passed on. That's my understanding.
How much time a week? How much time a week do you devote to TikTok vitriol?
Not much, Rece. Not much. Yeah. But if you just want me to go straight TMZ with the mic this weekend, I can. No problem. Forget the injury reports. We can just do Love Life updates. I'm ready.
We've got
whatever the assignment is.
We got to think about some zone blitz packages instead. We got to stay in our lanes, Pete, with a sprinkle of TikTok vitriol every now and then.
Just a dab.
Big Ten, B1G, Illinois and Indiana. Indiana won 11 games for the first time last year. They've also lost more games than any team in the history of the sport. Illinois has had all kinds of trouble sustaining success over the years. This century, 4 times Illinois has won 8 games or more in a season. The next year, they have a losing record. They were 5-1 in one-possession games a year ago, and while they won 10 a year ago, they've never won 10 games in successive seasons. If they're going to put a stop to those types of things, one would think that they need to start by beating the Hoosiers on the road. Now, I think we mentioned earlier, they don't have Penn State, they don't have Oregon, they don't have Michigan, and they've got Ohio State at home. This is as good as it's going to get for the Fighting Illini from in terms of schedule within the conference. They've already beaten Duke, and while Duke lost to Tulane, I still think Duke is a solid team. That was a good win. They forced Duke into mistakes. Good road win. What happens between Illinois and Indiana?
Well, I picked Indiana to go to the playoff, if you remember, and you can't pick Indiana to go to the playoff because it was kind of like an Indiana-Illinois toss-up. Like if you're gonna go with that extra Big Ten team. So I am going to stick with the Hoosiers. I think the cauldron of is it Memorial Stadium? Right? It's Memorial Stadium, right?
Yes, yeah.
The cauldron of Memorial Stadium, where we did game day last year, and it was electric. And I just think Indiana's defense has been consistently very good with Brian Haynes there. They have Aiden Fisher, who's just kind of one of those guys who gobbles up tackles during the games. D'Angelo Pons is one of the best corners in the country. And I think they can ground Illinois' offense down and figure out a way to win. Look for Mendoza to Surratt to be the connection this weekend.
I think this is going to be a terrific game between two really good teams. There's a rising star for the Illini, Hank Beatty, who leads the Big Ten in all-purpose yards, leads everybody in the Big Four. That was against Western Illinois, but he broke a Red Grange single-game punt return record this year. The Illini, they may get down, but they're never out. They have 5 fourth-quarter comeback wins a year ago. I think behind their defense, disruptive guys, Akis is a terrific player for them. I'm going to go with Brett. We like to call him Bert Bielema, and the Illini to go into Bloomington, win a thriller, and have the nation's longest winning streak at the end of the day.
All right. I'm glad.
Which also means you're getting a double pick. I'm picking Arkansas to beat Memphis then. I guess, because that was what it would require. Or I wouldn't have to necessarily. They could be tied. Yeah, I guess. So anyway.
I think that's fine.
Okay. Do you have a candidate for the deep cut this week?
You know what? I don't. I'm gonna pop the schedule up here, but what do you got?
Okay, there are a couple to look at, and maybe even a couple. We could do a twofer. rivalry games. We could do the two defunct rivalry games from the Pac-12, the old Pac-12, Oregon State, Washington, and Wazoo. Let's do Washington and Washington State. I know that doesn't always fit the narrative, but let's at least hit that one.
Washington State is bad. And they might be changing quarterbacks this week too.
So this is an easy one. So you say both those games, including the games going to be played for the Platypus Trophy, those are easy wins. Okay, how about this one? Here is I know we usually go way off the radar for Deep Cut. But to pay some tribute to West Virginia after beating Pitt last week, which that was, you know what? Remember when we did our preseason predictions and I said, Desmond Reed, Eli Holstein, guys who disruptive on defense for Pitt, and I didn't want to be a chalk-eating weasel, and I wanted to take one completely outside the box pick to go to the playoff, and I took Pittsburgh. Remember that?
I recall that, Rece. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you did, I have a very distinct memory, yes.
I wish you didn't remember that. I wish I didn't remember that. I wish I hadn't done that. I mean, that was like the most Pitt loss ever. Why? Anyway, but credit to West Virginia. Credit to West Virginia, who played its tail off after having, star running back loss for the season, embarrassing loss. Even if Ohio U's a good team, which it is, still an embarrassing loss for West Virginia to go to a MAC school and get beat. Especially with the number of chances they had to win the game. They benched their quarterback in the middle of the game. He comes back, led them to victory. Now they go to Kansas. I mean, what do you think about West Virginia, Kansas? Down with that one?
I like Kansas, man. I like Kansas. That offense, even though they didn't get it done in Missouri, they've just looked crisp and succinct, with Jalen Daniels in his 27th year there. And I do feel like West Virginia is going to struggle to score the game. Somebody at West Virginia summed up that win for me this way. Under Neil Brown last year, they were up big in the final 5 minutes. I think it was 10. And they had a 98% win probability and lost. And this year they were down 2 scores in a similar frame of time and had a 2% win probability and won. So perhaps it is what Mr. McAfee deemed the hard edge that has returned at West Virginia. And perhaps not TikTok dancing has kept them fresh so they could really thrive in those last 5 minutes.
Rich Rod has shut down the TikTok dancing, and I've always been a big fan of his. That guy can coach, man.
He can coach,
and
man.
It was really, really evident on Saturday with their win.
Did you see the clip of him on Pat's show yesterday where he talked about the jumbo package, and then he decided to say, you know what, I don't want to be politically correct. I'm just going to call it the fat package.
He's the best, man.
He called one of his linemen a couple of cheeseburgers short of 400 pounds.
Doesn't get better than the characters. We need characters in the sport.
Yes.
Glad. Well, what a great win for the Mountaineers. And maybe another. I'm going to go with Kansas too. I like Kansas as well. It was a year early on the Kansas bandwagon last year. Yeah. Maybe
You're
another bad
Rece
playoff
Davis.
Pick from last year.
You're ahead of your time, man.
Yeah. Maybe so. You got anything else to wrap, Pete? Before we go, you got something to keep an eye on for Saturday?
I don't think so. I feel like we're now settled in, right? There's all the anticipation and then there's overreaction. And I feel like this is where the season now hits a rhythm and we're going to blink and it's going to be mid-November. So God bless it. The 4 box on Saturday night with 4 awesome, that's what this sport is about. You know what I mean? You don't know what to pay attention to. Am I watching LSU, Florida? Am I watching Notre Dame, Texas A&M? It was just, that's when when the sport hits the tunnel of goodness and just goes. And that's where we are right now.
Those two games Saturday and watching them within the 4 box, but I kept going full screen first on Georgia, Tennessee, and then on Notre Dame A&M. That was a great game.
Those are
Saturday
2
night.
games of the year on the same on the same day. So yeah, you could having been at Tennessee in the morning and then watching it, you could like feel the emotion in the state. It was like still in my lungs. Like it was one of those games that you knew was gonna stick around forever.
For
God
sure.
bless
Hopefully
this
we'll
sport.
get. Hopefully we will get more like that this week. Thanks for listening to the College Game Day Podcast. Download wherever you prefer to get your podcast or subscribe and never miss an episode. We'll talk to you soon.